Many climbers train endurance by chasing the feeling of getting pumped in their forearms. The idea goes, I'm pumped when I fall off, so I need to get more pumped more often. But what if this is wrong? What if this is actually limiting your gains in endurance? The answer lies within this graph. Let us explain how this works, but make sure to stay to the end so we can give you 3 simple training sessions we use to develop world-class fitness. For training to be specific, it does not need to look or feel like the climb you are training for. The training should be specific to the adaptation that you're trying to work on. Training endurance needs to be specific to the energy system that we want to train. It doesn't need to feel like the end point of failure that you'll experience in your climbing, which typically is when you're pumped. Most climbers will rely very heavily on their anaerobic energy system, but this might not be what's holding your climbing back. In fact, climbers often favor training the wrong energy system. Let's take a step back and look at this in 2 ways.
The first step in understanding how endurance works is getting to grips with how our energy systems work together for a sustained effort. Whenever we climb, all of our energy systems will be contributing to that effort. How much they contribute will depend on the intensity, that is the difficulty, of the climbing for you. The easier the climbing is for you, the longer you can sustain it and the longer you can stay on the wall. When you do this, you'll be contributing more to the effort with your aerobic energy system. This energy system is more sustainable in providing the energy for your climbing. Although we have 3 energy systems that contribute to our climbing, they do not all contribute equally at any given intensity. This is because the 3 energy systems that we have produce energy at different rates. We have 2 anaerobic energy systems. The first of these is the phosphocreatine system, which produces energy really quickly and is associated with a strength effort in our climbing. The second of these is the glycolytic system. Now this system will be used for a more sustained, difficult effort, something like a long boulder problem or a short, sustained sport route. In the context of a sport climbing effort, we're going to group these together and just call them our anaerobic systems. Our third energy system is our aerobic system. Now this system produces energy slowly, but it has a really large capacity to do so. So it allows us to stay on the wall for long durations of time. Our aerobic energy system is a very sustainable way of producing energy for our climbing. And this is because it doesn't have the same byproducts associated with it that the anaerobic systems have that cause muscle fatigue when we're using those systems. All of these energy systems contribute to our climbing in varying amounts, but we can view how this happens using an analogy of a tank. So imagine a tank with a pipe going into it at the top and a pipe coming out of it at the bottom. The tank is going to have an amount of water in it, and this is going to represent your anaerobic capacity, so the amount of climbing that you can do with these systems. The pipe going out at the bottom represents the energy expenditure of your climbing. And the pipe going in at the top represents the input from your aerobic system to replenish the amount of water in that tank. The pipe going in at the top represents how your aerobic energy system can contribute to your overall potential to do work. This is important because our aerobic system helps us to recover our anaerobic systems. There are a few different variables with this analogy. The size of the outflow pipe represents the difficulty of the climbing for you. The more intense the climbing is, the quicker your tank will be drained. The size of the inflow pipe and the size of the tank are the trainable factors in this analogy. This is one of the biggest mistakes we see people make. They focus too much on the size of that anaerobic tank and not enough on the size of the aerobic in pipe. The aerobic energy system is vital for our climbing because climbing is a varied intensity sport. On any given climb, you'll have moves that are easier for you and moves that are hard for you. In sport climbing in particular, this means we need to be able to rest and recover on the wall. The aerobic energy system is also really important for bouldering because it's the way that you can recover between attempts. So, 2 things our aerobic energy system is vital for. 1, producing energy in a sustainable way for long durations on the wall, and 2, allowing us to recover our anaerobic systems for our hard climbing.
So we should have learned two things. Firstly, that we have 3 different systems that create energy via different pathways. And secondly, if we want to target our energy systems efficiently, volume is key for our aerobic development and intensity is key for our anaerobic development. This is where the problem arises of just get really pumped. That hits the middle ground of volume and intensity, and it's not really an effective long-term strategy to improving both of these energy systems. Another issue with the approach of just getting really pumped to train both energy systems is that it's often associated with high levels of fatigue because these efforts are really exhaustive. Before we run through these training sessions, we have a really exciting announcement here at Lattice Training. We are releasing our brand new online course. In this video, we've only just started to cover the basics of training the aerobic energy system for endurance. But if you like this type of content and want to take your training to the next level, A Climber's Guide to Training is a comprehensive look at training for climbing. This online course covers all the elements you need to know, from strength and power on the wall, the off-the-wall training like weightlifting and grip training, and of course, endurance training. We've put our many years of experience into this course to give you the tools and confidence to run your own training. You're also going to get insights from world-class athletes like Aidan Roberts and Josh Ibbotson, so you can see how they've taken their climbing to the highest level. From today, we have 100 early bird spaces available where you can sign up for this course with a 50% discount. Head to the link in the description to sign up now. The course goes live in January, and this is the biggest discount we will ever have on this course. But if you miss one of the 100 spaces, make sure to sign up to our newsletter for future updates and potential offers.
So now we're going to look at 3 great ways to train endurance. We can use short intervals, long intervals, or continuous climbing. Where most climbers fall down on all of these exercises is the intensity of the climbing. A great example of a short interval training session is 1 on, 1 off. In this session, you're going to climb for 1 minute on the wall, then rest for 1 minute off the wall, and you're going to complete this 10 times. The intensity of climbing should mean that you build a pump throughout that 1 minute on the wall, but you should be able to recover fully in the 1 minute rest. Short interval training sessions are one of the most intense ways for training your aerobic energy system. It's also a great session if you're struggling to find an area of climbing wall to complete the lower intensity training sessions. Although you should build a pump throughout your 1 minute on the wall, you should not be near failure towards the end of that time. A useful way of exploring this is to stay on the wall beyond the 1 minute timer and see how much you feel like you've got left in the tank. A good example of a long interval session is 5 minutes on, 3 minutes off. So we're going to do this 3 times, so there's 15 minutes spent on the wall in total. The concept for this session is the same as that for 1 on, 1 off. But because the duration on the wall is longer, we're going to need to lower the intensity of the climbing. You will build some pump during the 5 minutes on the wall, but it should always feel manageable. A good rule of thumb here is you should always be able to shake on the hold you're on and recover quickly. With both of these interval training sessions, the rest period is a really important part of the session. During this rest period, your energy systems are still working to recover for the next bout of climbing. The third method is continuous climbing, and a good example of this is spending 20 minutes on the wall. Traditionally, this has been called arcing, which stands for aerobic recruitment capillarization. When we climb on the wall continuously for 20 minutes, we are wanting it to be at a very sustainable intensity. You should feel like you could climb on that wall indefinitely. For these continuous training sessions, you should select an intensity that means that you are not building any pump on the wall. The final minute should feel the same as the first minute of climbing. You can choose a range of durations here. You could do this for 10 minutes if you're starting out and 30 minutes if you've built up that capacity.
If you want to learn more about training for climbing, head to the link in the description below for our online training course with our biggest ever discount. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.